All right, welcome to Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. Have an ebook and an audiobook by the same name. Thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subscribing. It's greatly appreciated. Please share my content with others that you think might benefit from learning a little bit about what I have to say, learning about radical self-respect, maybe in regards to mental health or supplement routine or dating or mindset or whatever it may be. Share it with them if you want. But on to today's video, I've been doing a lot of observing of the dating market recently. And if you ask women if they've ever dated a narcissist before, almost all of them will say they have, which begs the question, what must all of these narcissistic dudes be doing right to have been with so many women? Now, of course, there are some women who may just be spiteful and the ex isn't really narcissistic, but they're just saying it. Absolutely, that happens too. But I'm pretty convinced that's not the total case because I know people that I'm not a psychologist, but I'm pretty sure I know a few people that have NPD. But here's the thing, they always have a woman around, they're always attracting someone. So again, it begs the question, what's going on here? And I've kind of been on both sides of this equation, really. I've been a dude that's been called narcissistic before. And I've also been the dude that women have said something like, oh, any woman would be lucky to have you, which really just means any woman but me. So I've been like the nice, good dude before. And I guess I've been a little bit of the ass before too. And here's the thing though, when I was being called narcissistic, unfortunately, there was always more women in my life when I was being called that. Now, granted, it's not good. I'm not advocating being narcissistic, but I do want to talk about what exactly is going on here. And I think part of it has to do with narcissistic people are often going to be a little more ambitious. They're going to want to excel and have power and prestige. And let's face it, that's something that a lot of women do look for in a man. Now, and it's not always just that either. I'm going to use one of my cousins as an example because he probably has the disorder and he's a dude. But when we would spend time together, it was kind of like it wasn't reality. Our past traumas, etc., were splicing in a way that when I was hanging out with him, it kind of felt otherworldly. It was like an escape. And I can only imagine what it's like for a woman who kind of has similar traumas that I have, and then they hang out with someone like that, and it kind of takes them away. And I've heard women say this exact same thing about Kanye, for example. Like years ago, he would be that magical presence for them. And then eventually the woman would be upset because Kanye wouldn't stop cheating, but that she could never say the time she spent with him wasn't fun, that it wasn't a blast. And that's one of the big things that narcissistic dudes have. A lot of them have this charm, they have a charisma, and they have social proof so that other women just flock to it. And the guy can even have a girlfriend, and other women will still flirt with him knowing that he has a girlfriend. I've seen this play out many times before too, where obviously the guy has a girlfriend, but the other girl just does not care. And the girlfriend may even say something to the dude, hey, that girl's flirting with you, stop that. And the dude will do nothing. And maybe they'll even break up, and then she'll start getting with him. The girl that was flirting, he'll get with the dude later. And it's like, well, and the woman doesn't think to herself, well, if he was flirting and doing all that in the relationship, what makes me think that I'm going to be any different? Why wouldn't he flirt and cheat on me in the relationship? They don't really think that, but it absolutely happens. And so that's what I've seen mostly. And a lot of these guys, there's kind of like a natural element to it where they just have it's kind of like a blue pill alpha, but the narcissistic variety where they have very high confidence, they're funny, they're charismatic, everyone seems to like them. And often when it comes to dating, if you can make a woman feel really good and have a blast and have a lot of fun and you have social proof, they will overlook a bunch of red flags, especially when they're younger. Now, a lot of women will be angry about that, but you look at the reality of what's going on here. When women are 18 to 28-ish, that's when they're most likely to be with a narcissistic dude. And I think some of it is evolutionary biology, where those are their prime baby making years, and subconsciously they are looking for a dude that's going to be strong to pass that guy's offspring down into the future. That does absolutely happen. And then when women get older, and then when they get past their baby making years, a lot of them can often mature. Some of them are lucky enough to mature younger, but often when they're older, they'll finally get it and they'll finally want to kind of go move past that kind of guy. But some never do, unfortunately. Some can never kind of get over that hump. But it absolutely is reality that happens everywhere. And so, as a guy, maybe you aren't narcissistic and maybe you're struggling with dating right now, if you're even choosing to be dating at all. I know there's a lot of guys right now that's not what they're doing. They're not choosing to date, and that's totally cool by me. I don't judge MGTOW. I don't judge MGTOW monk. I don't care what people do. I do have a hard time advocating for marriage. Like I've said, I can see why it's supposed to be good, but the way it's framed right now, I just can't really get behind it. But so what do you learn from these kinds of guys? It's like, well, a lot of them have like a lighthearted attitude about them. And again, if you ask a woman if she wants a narcissistic guy, she'll never say yes. She's not going to say, oh yes, I want a narcissistic guy. It doesn't work like that. But the guys that I've seen who are narcissistic, they kind of overcome the labels. And the women don't see them as narcissistic. They more like see them as the dude they have fun with, the dude that has social proof, the dude that's charismatic and a really fun time to hang out with, the dude that seems otherworldly. And when they hang out with that guy, time stands still and it feels like they're in a different universe. That's how the women will see those guys mostly, especially in the beginning during more of a love bombing phase. 1000%. Because they're not going to say, oh yeah, I'm looking for a narcissistic cluster B dude. No, no woman will ever say that. But often women will get swept away. And again, ask the women in your life, ask them, do you think you've been with a narcissistic dude? And I'd be willing to bet almost all of them would say yes. So again, there's something to this where hypergamy seems to like narcissistic dudes, because narcissistic dudes are probably disproportionately at the top of social hierarchies. Now, they may not have the full-blown disorder, but they often have narcissistic traits. Look at any kind of politician, extremely successful CEO, a lot of entertainers and athletes. They are absolutely narcissistic. It's just not even a question. Now, do they have a disorder? That's another question. But a lot of them are narcissistic, and hypergamy certainly seems to select for that to an extent. They do seem to like, and that goes for dark triad too. Remember that Netflix show You? A lot of girls were ranting and raving about that guy Joe, who was clearly disordered, but a lot of them couldn't help it but to like him a little bit. And it's the same thing I've seen a little bit with Kanye right now too, in his antics, where yes, it can be pretty troublesome what he's doing. And I might actually do a whole video on that, because I did a little digging about Kanye and Kim, and then I dug a little into Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande, and it was pretty interesting. Let me tell you that. Kim and Kanye they're both some characters, and they both certainly have their flaws. But the point was, like Kanye, most certainly narcissistic, and Kim obviously knew that. But it doesn't matter sometimes. They just do not care. In the beginning, the red flags we ignore will be the reason why the relationship ends later. And in that scenario, that appears to be exactly what happened. So these are just the dynamics that seem to go round and round, where women seem to like that. And it just kind of is what it is. So as men, you got to kind of take a look at it and see what they're doing right. I'm not saying to be abusive. I'm not saying to go through love bombing, just discard the value. I'm not saying that either. But it would be careless not to notice the good things they do and try to imitate those good things. Imitate the good qualities, but kind of put it through our own prism and interpret it from ourselves, and then use it in a way that suits us. So, for example, you see that dude that's charismatic, he's always friendly and talking to people. That's probably something to try to emulate. I don't know, I just like doing a lot of people watching these days, and you see it on social media, you see it in the media, and you kind of see the dynamics. And like I said, it's very interesting how, like, when you have a couple really good qualities, people will overlook red flags for a couple really good qualities. Very interesting. So that's what seems to happen. And again, I'm not saying to do any gaslighting. I'm not saying to hurt women at all or cheat and do all the things a lot of these ladies seem to, or these guys seem to do. But it'd be interesting to kind of learn from them. And I've also seen, especially amongst YouTube creators, I've seen a lot of this self-aware narcissistic person where they don't quite have a disorder, but they're kind of on the borderline where they are certainly like have a sense of self-importance and entitled, but they also have the unique ability to have some reflection and to be self-aware about it. And it's pretty fascinating to see. I might actually make some more videos about that too. But yeah, and it's the mad one. Do you have any questions? Just curious. But yeah, so I see this dynamic all the time on social media where it's uncanny how people will be willing to overlook red flags. And again, guys do this too in regards to women, right? And like I said, I've been both sides of this equation before. And I've said in the past that I've been the dude women have called narcissistic. And I try to think why that was. Why were they calling me narcissistic? And I think sometimes when you have a good belief in yourself, sometimes that's what people just automatically jump to. It might not be true, but it's just kind of what they say. And again, it's just something good to look at. When you see the guys who are being successful, take a look at what they're doing. Often they're doing very similar things. Or they're doing something that works for them. So I don't really have too much more to go on today. I just think it's fascinating when you see these social dynamics play out. And when you see women they all don't like narcissists, but often their actions will say something else entirely. Again, that's why we can't pay attention to what they say. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. And that's true. And again, because no woman's going to say they like narcissistic dudes. But look who they wind up with. Is that a dude who's a narcissistic dude? And the narcissistic people in my life, they always seem to be in long-term relationships too, for that matter. They're not even going from fling to fling. A lot of them have like a long-term relationships and multiple of them. And I even wonder to myself, how is he doing? How is he not going into full-blown disorder mode when he's clearly done it with me? So I wonder. Sometimes maybe I think they can hold off for a while. They can hold off, and that mask can stay up for a while. And we all know about like the narcissistic mask. The narcissistic mask is what they present to the world during the love bombing phase. During the love bombing phase, they'll do things like future fake, or they'll try to rush to move in with you really quickly, rush to intimacy. And often what they're doing is when they get really close like that and they want to move in, it's because they want to have more control over you. That's a thing to watch out for if you're a woman out there and a guy wants to move in really quickly and the guy wants to kind of get all up in there fast. That's a warning. That's a warning from, if it's a narcissistic dude, that's just a dude who wants more control over you. Now, not always. There's always going to be exceptions. Sometimes there's a guy who that is like he thinks he's being very romantic or something, and he'll do that too. And that might not be as bad, but I wouldn't recommend that for a dude either. I would say you don't really know somebody for at least a year until you've seen them go through all 4 seasons and you've seen them like interact with other people, friends, family. You see how they handle being told boundaries. You see how they handle placing boundaries themselves. You take a look at all that stuff and you see how it's done, because the narcissistic person, they can keep that mask up for a while. And then once that mask falls, the value and discard is usually not too far away. But that mask, where the love bombing takes place, the future faking takes place, and that's where, when they rush to move in, that's where the future faking seems like legit. Because, oh, he's asking to move in. He wants to move in quickly. But remember, it's usually just because they want more control. And some of them seem to follow through a little better than others, but ultimately, the ones with the disorder, they will cheat. They will get with other people. They will have a harem. They'll have a harem garage. And those are just things to look out for. So again, one of my next videos is going to be about the whole Kanye and Kim and then Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande situation, because when you look at it through a personality disorder spectrum, you see it through a different lens. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, is they just don't see things through the correct lens. Like I say, with the women that wind up with narcissistic dudes, they should probably be looking at it through more of a, this is a narcissistic dude lens. But when those good feelings come in and the love bombing happens and someone's really charismatic and fun, people don't look at it through that rational lens anymore. They often look at it through the emotional lens. And when they look at things through the emotional lens, that's when people get themselves in trouble. And on this channel in particular, what I see is the opposite. I see the dudes that fall for it with women when the woman's narcissistic or the woman's borderline, and the guys fall like head over heels for the love bombing. Because let's face it, a lot of guys don't get love bombed like that very often. So when it does occur, especially from a very attractive woman, a lot of guys who don't know any better, they fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Because it is very appealing, especially if you're not used to it. If you're not used to the love bombing, when that attractive woman comes by and starts love bombing you and treating you in a way you've never been treated before, it is difficult to resist, I'll admit. But once you see through it, they can't do that to you anymore. It's not going to be it just doesn't come off the same way anymore. But I see dudes, they struggle with the same things. And as a guy, I would say you got to know what to look for. Look for a woman that doesn't talk about herself ever. You don't know anything about her, right? She mirrors all of your likes and your dislikes. And she has that mask up. And she's just in love bombing mode. Those are things to look out for. You got to watch out for that girl. And she'll have a bunch of other dudes around too. But it's important to know what to look for. But for the women out there, like I said, know what to look for as well. Like, don't let your feelings get in the way. Don't let your emotions blind you to the logistics of what exactly is going on. Because, yeah, a guy might be really fun. He might be charismatic. He might blow your back out. He might feel like it's hanging out in a different universe. Time stands still when you're with him. But at the end of the day, does he have NPD? At the end of the day, is he narcissistic? At the end of the day, is he going to cheat, lie, gaslight, emotionally manipulate, give you word salad, and otherwise just display toxic behaviors? That's why it's important to keep our feet on the ground so we can see those things coming. So that's all I had for today. I just thought it was really interesting when you see all of the things that women do and wind up with. And I mean, again, this is not just women. Guys do the same things too. It might just happen a little less frequently because, let's face it, women have way more options in the dating world than most guys do. So it's the women who are often choosing narcissistic dudes, as opposed to the vice versa occurring, a narcissistic woman or a borderline woman swooping in and taking advantage of a dude. It happens, but it just doesn't seem to happen as often as the vice versa. So thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And keep your eye out for the Kanye Kim video coming up too.